I used to think I was just too understanding, that I gave people the benefit of the doubt because I was strong. Now I wonder if I just let people walk through me like a ghost. My name's Katie Gray. I'm 29 and I work night shifts as a nurse at a small walk-in clinic in Oregon. The kind of place with a buzzing vending machine and plastic chairs that groan under people's exhaustion. Zach was the opposite of my life. Loud. Bright. Always selling something, even if it was just a dream. He showed up at my birthday 2 years ago with a guitar, a busted bouquet, and this half-manic grin that made my friend Ellie whisper, "Girl, this one's dangerous." I laughed. But not because she was wrong. Zach had that kind of charm that made you forget his bank account was a black hole. He always almost had something big. A design deal. A startup. A crypto whatever. And when things fell through, they always did. It was like watching a magician drop his deck and blame the audience. For a while, I was the audience. Then I was the assistant. Then I was just the bank. Rent slipped. My laptop broke. My emergency fund became his escape plan. We dated for 2 years. I was exhausted. He was still making mixtapes in the basement, calling them projects. When I finally ended it, after one too many nights of him disappearing without explanation, after one too many overdraft fees tied to my own kindness, he said something that I thought was just heat of the moment anger. "You'll regret this, Katie. You'll see what justice looks like." I blocked him. Everywhere. Number. Socials. Even Venmo. I thought, this is what peace feels like. For about a month it was. Then I started noticing weird things. Someone driving slow past my apartment more than once. A call from a client at work asking for Katie with AY. No one spells my name like that. Then the car thing. I was loading groceries into my trunk, oranges, oat milk, a 6-pack of off-brand fizzy water, when he appeared. Like something summoned. Standing in the open, yelling like we were mid-argument already. "You scratched my bumper yesterday. You hit me then drove off." People turned. A kid dropped his fruit snack pouch. My blood turned to ice. I hadn't seen his car in over a month. I hadn't even driven in that area he mentioned. "If I'm at fault," I said, my voice level, "let's call the police. I'd like to get everything documented." He flinched. Just barely. Then pulled out his phone and started recording. "Look at this criminal. She's trying to avoid responsibility." He turned, narrating to a completely uninterested couple walking by. I didn't shout. I didn't run. I just dialed the cops myself and said, "There's been a false accusation and some public disturbance." Then I waited. The officers were calm. One of them looked at me like he recognized the script. I told them I'd been working night shift. That I hadn't been in the area. I asked if the grocery store had cameras. They said they'd look. Zach's eyes didn't blink the whole time. Like he was trying to will the world into obeying his version. That night, I sat on my kitchen floor with the lights off and scrolled through every text he'd ever sent. Every lie. Every flinch in my memory that I used to excuse. Would you believe someone just because you loved them once? 2 days later, a detective called. She was polite. Professional. Asked if I could come down to the station with my phone and receipts. I don't remember breathing after I hung up. But I remember what I packed. My time card. My bank statements showing my shift meal purchases. A screenshot of his message saying revenge is coming. And something else. A photo of us from 6 months ago, Zach smiling in front of my apartment. Time-stamped. Because sometimes you don't know you're building your defense in real time. That was the day I realized. He wasn't trying to get money. He was trying to get control. He didn't want closure. He wanted chaos. And if he couldn't have me, he'd settle for dragging me down through the mud in front of strangers. But what he didn't know is that I'd already stopped playing his game. You ever notice how quiet people get right before they fight back? The security footage didn't show me near his car. But it did show something else, Zach. Filming other cars. At night. Alone. That's when the detective looked up from her clipboard and said, "You might want to get a lawyer." I want to say I was shocked. That the detective's warning hit me like a freight train. But the truth? It felt like someone finally turning the lights on in a room I'd been pretending was fine in the dark. You know that feeling when something clicks? Like your memory rearranges itself and what used to look like love now looks like strategy. That's what happened the moment she said, "You might want to get a lawyer." Zach had always said I was too cautious. That I overthought things. That I couldn't handle pressure. But now I wondered, was that just training? Getting me used to doubt. To shame. To second-guessing my gut. I left the station numb. Not scared, not yet. Just unraveling. My shift started at 10 p.m., but I couldn't go in like that. So I pulled over behind the clinic where the dumpsters are and just sat there with the engine humming. There was a folder on my lap. Inside, receipts, timestamps, screenshots. I looked down at my own handwriting, dates, gas station addresses, time logs, and suddenly realized something. I had been collecting evidence long before I knew why. Not for court. Not for police. But for me. To prove I wasn't crazy. You ever keep little things just in case someone questions your memory? A Walgreens receipt. A voicemail where someone says, "See you at 2." A photo of your own bedroom just to remember how it used to look. Back when we lived together, Zach used to say I was paranoid for locking my laptop. He said couples shouldn't have secrets. But I wasn't hiding things, I was trying to preserve myself. My data. My calendar. My autonomy. Now I was grateful. Every little paranoia had become proof. 2 nights later, I got a letter. An official-looking envelope. Typed. Crisp. Tucked between coupon ads and a local dentist flyer. It was from Zach's insurance company. He'd filed a claim for $6,500 in damages, emotional distress, rear bumper damage, loss of use. The photos attached made me laugh, then freeze. They were clearly taken in 2 different places. Different lighting. One looked like daylight, the other near dusk. And in one of them, clear as day, was his own reflection in the side panel holding his phone. I stared at it for a full minute. Not because it was funny, but because it was so stupid. So reckless. That's when it hit me. Zach didn't think he'd get caught. Because Zach never thought the rules applied to him. He wasn't just desperate. He was rehearsing. Every lie. Every performance. And I'd been the audience for 2 years. I called Ellie that night. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just said, "I always felt like he was watching himself. Like he needed you there to believe he existed." That sat with me. Hard. Would you still love someone if you realized you were just the mirror they used to love themselves? I opened a box in my closet. Inside was the bracelet he gave me for our anniversary. Not in a jewelry box, just lying on top of crumpled tissue paper from a shoe purchase. I remember he said it was vintage. There was a price tag tucked into the folds. $14.99. From a gas station mini-mart. Back then I told myself it didn't matter. That the thought was enough. But now I wonder if even that was fake. A prop. Assembled to make me feel seen when really I was being scanned for weak points. The detective called again. Said they'd review the security footage. That Zach's timeline didn't match store records and that he'd been seen casing cars before the accident. She asked if I'd be willing to share any messages from him. I sent everything. Even the message he deleted, the one I screenshotted months ago. "If you ever screw me over, I promise you'll feel it where it hurts." She didn't say much. Just, "This helps." A lot. I think that was the first time I felt it, the shift. Not relief. Not justice. Just gravity. Like something had locked into place and wouldn't move again. 2 days after that, I got a voicemail. Blocked number. Voice disguised. Just 4 words. "You started this war." I sat on my kitchen tile for over an hour replaying it. Wondering if I should even report it. Wondering if I was overreacting again. But then I remembered. That's what he counted on. Me second-guessing. Me minimizing. Me staying quiet. And I'm done letting my silence protect the wrong people. What if staying quiet was the real betrayal? You probably think I'm being dramatic. Maybe I am. But this is exactly how it happened. That night, I clicked on an old shared folder from our Google Drive and found a video I didn't remember recording. In it, Zach was in my car. Talking to himself. Practicing something. Don't panic. Just accuse first. You ever feel like your memories are watching you? Not the other way around, not you flipping through old moments like a photo album, but like your past is quietly waiting for you to finally see what it was always showing. That's what it felt like when I opened that video. I didn't even know we had a shared folder left on Google Drive. I thought I'd disconnected everything months ago. But apparently, one of his old video files auto-synced to my account the week after we broke up. It had no title. Just a string of numbers. The thumbnail was the inside of my car. I almost didn't open it. I wish I hadn't. But I did. The first thing I heard was his breathing. Then, "Don't panic. Just accuse first." He was in my front seat. Pity up. In the middle of the day. He looked at himself in the rearview mirror, rehearsing lines like he was auditioning. "You hit me. You hit my car. You ran. You need to pay. You owe me." I watched him say it 3 different ways. Same words. Different tones. As if he was trying to see which one would sound believable. You ever see someone you used to kiss and realize they're a stranger? I closed the laptop and just sat there. Heart in my throat. Hands shaking. Not out of fear. Out of rage. This wasn't just a setup. It was a performance. And I used to think I was part of the audience. But now I know I was part of the act. The next morning, I took the video to the detective. She didn't blink while watching it. Just paused, rewound, played it again. Then looked at me and said, "We're opening a formal investigation. If you're willing to give a full statement, this could go to trial." Trial. That word landed in my stomach like a stone. I wasn't trying to win. I just wanted to be done. But I knew I couldn't be. Not yet. That week, I got a certified letter. His lawyer. It was laughably theatrical, a cease and desist. accusing me of harassment, slander, and emotional damages due to a vindictive breakup. I reread it 5 times just to feel the absurdity of it. I didn't respond. I just forwarded everything to the detective. But the worst part wasn't the letter. It was the voicemail I got from his mom. I don't know what you think you're doing, Katie, but Zach's life is falling apart. He's not a criminal. He's hurting. You used to love him. Why are you trying to destroy him? I didn't reply. But I sat in the bathroom at work for 20 minutes, gripping the sink, hearing her voice echo. You used to love him. I did. That's the thing. I really, really did. And that love is what he used like a crowbar. Not to get in, but to break me open. The real breaking point came the following weekend. I was working late, 12-hour shift, understaffed, 2 patients with post-op complications. Around 2:30 a.m., my coworker Tanya came to the nurse's station with a strange look on her face. There's someone asking for you. Says he's your brother. I froze. I don't have a brother. I went to the waiting area and found Zach. Disheveled. Pale. Holding his side like he was in pain. They said you're the only nurse here. I think my ribs are broken. He looked me dead in the eyes as if none of the past month had happened. As if I was still his safety net. Please. You know I hate hospitals. You ever see someone begging and still know it's a game? I called security. Calmly. No yelling. No drama. Just. I believe this man is attempting to manipulate hospital staff. He's not a relative. Please escort him out. He didn't resist. Didn't speak. Just gave me that look, the one I used to confuse for remorse. But right before he left, he leaned in close enough that only I could hear him. You think this is over? It's just starting. That night, I cried in the break room for the first time in years. Not because I was scared, but because I realized something brutal. He never wanted me back. He just wanted to keep me from moving forward. I think that's when I stopped hoping he'd grow up. Stopped hoping anyone would see the truth for me. The next morning I contacted a lawyer. I handed over everything. The video, the messages, the insurance documents, even the voicemail from his mom. My lawyer, a quiet, sharp-eyed woman named Teresa, listened without blinking. Then said, he's reckless. That makes him dangerous but also easy to corner. I asked what the next step was. She said, we wait for him to try something stupid. Which he will. I spent the next few days in a weird kind of limbo. Wiping down counters. Folding laundry I didn't care about. Avoiding calls from blocked numbers. You ever live in a state of waiting, like the air around you is about to crack? Then it did. Teresa called. There's been a development. You filed a second insurance claim and used your old address again. The detective flagged it. This might be enough for an arrest warrant. I didn't say anything. Not even thank you. I just stood in my living room, staring at the photo frame on my wall. It was a picture of me and my coworkers, blurry and laughing, taken during a fire drill. Zach had taken it. He used to say I looked real when I wasn't posing. Now looking at it, I felt sick. How many things in my life had he touched that I hadn't even realized were contaminated? Would you still love someone if you realized you were just the mirror they used to love themselves? You ever wonder how long someone's been rehearsing your downfall? The next day, I got an alert from my bank. Someone tried to reset my online access using Zach's old laptop. That's when I knew this wasn't over. It was escalating. Fast. You ever wake up and not recognize your own peace? Like, for a second you think something's wrong, just because nothing is. That's how the first few days after the arrest felt. Quiet. Still. Uneasy. Zach was officially charged with insurance fraud and filing a false police report. They found screen recordings, fake receipts he'd edited in Photoshop, and a drafted letter he never sent, where he pretended to be me, confessing to the hit and run in an attempt to settle it privately. It was also detailed. So prepped. The detective said. Honestly, I think he believed he'd pull it off. That's what makes him dangerous. He tried calling me from jail. 3 times. Each from a different extension, as if switching the number would trick me into answering. The voicemail he left was short. Cold. Almost pitiful. You ruined my life. I hope you're proud. I deleted it. But I still hear it sometimes like a whisper in the background of quiet moments. At work, people started asking questions. I hadn't told anyone besides Ellie. But news in a small town doesn't walk its sprints. A patient recognized me and said, aren't you the nurse whose boyfriend faked a hit and run? I just nodded. Didn't correct her. Didn't say he wasn't my boyfriend, not anymore. What was the point? Even in his absence, Zach still found ways to take up space in my life. You ever feel like someone's shadow is longer than the time they were even standing there? A week later, Ellie invited me to brunch. Something normal. Pancakes, coffee, quiet people, and safe conversation. But as soon as I sat down, she pulled out an envelope. Inside, a printed photo of me leaving work. Not recent, maybe 2 months ago. Nighttime. Alone. Walking to my car. This was taped to my front door this morning, she said. No note. No return address. Just this. My stomach dropped. He was watching me even before the grocery store incident. Planning. Tracking. Waiting. I tried to laugh it off. Tried to say he was desperate. Tried to believe jail was the end. But I felt it, deep in my chest. This wasn't about justice anymore. This was about ownership. Zach didn't love me. He didn't even hate me. He just couldn't stand the idea that I'd moved on without needing to look back. I changed my locks. Again. I got new passwords. New bank accounts. New phone. I even moved to a different apartment, smaller, tighter, no porch light, just so I could sleep without scanning every shadow outside. The lease agent didn't ask questions. She just looked at my ID and said, "You've been through it, huh?" And for the first time, I didn't lie. Yeah, but I'm still standing. I unpacked a box labeled junk drawer and found a pin he once gifted me. He said it was custom with my initials engraved. It wasn't. It was from a hotel conference room. Still had the Marriott logo hidden under the clip. I sat on my mattress, no bed frame yet, and stared at it. Something that was supposed to feel personal. Real. Tangible love. But it was just plastic. Stolen. Like everything else he gave me. He didn't need to touch me to wreck my life. The trial date was set for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, I went to therapy. Not because I thought I needed it, but because I didn't want to. And that's usually the sign you probably should. I sat across from a woman named Brenda who didn't ask, "How are you feeling?" She asked, "When did you first stop feeling safe?" That question cracked something open. Because the answer wasn't after the car incident. It wasn't even during the breakup. It was the first time he laughed when I cried. The first time he told me my panic attack was just drama. The first time he said, "You're overreacting. Nobody else would put up with you." That's when I stopped feeling safe. Not with him. With myself. You ever start apologizing just for having feelings? By week 4, I had a new routine. Therapy Mondays. Night shifts Tuesday through Friday. Meal prep Sunday. Silence in between. People started saying things like, "You're so strong. You're really handling this well." I nodded. Smiled. Said thanks. But what I wanted to say was, "I'm not strong. I'm just trying not to break where people can see." Then out of nowhere, Ellie sent me a screenshot. Zach had written a letter to a local blog from jail. It was titled, "How a Woman's Lies Ruined My Life and the System Helped Her." It was full of half-truths, twisted memories, and veiled jabs at my character. He didn't use my name. But he didn't have to. People knew. They always know. The comment section was already buzzing. Some believed him. Some called him out. One line stuck with me. "Men like him don't want justice. They want revenge in a prettier costume." I saved that comment. Just so I'd remember I wasn't crazy. What if surviving someone is the only way to prove they were dangerous? I know it sounds paranoid. But every time it goes quiet, I brace for noise. The next morning, there was a knock at my door. A delivery. No return address. Just a single item, the same hotel pen. With red ink this time. That's when I realized he'd found my new address. Again. You ever open the door knowing something's on the other side that might change everything? It wasn't the pen that scared me. It was the fact that it wasn't signed for. No delivery record. No tracking. No note. Just a cheap red hotel pen. The exact model Zach once claimed was engraved for me. Now back. With blood-colored ink. It was symbolic. It was a warning. And it worked. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark on my new couch with my phone in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other. Not dramatic. Just prepared. Because at this point I didn't know what he was still capable of. He'd already weaponized my job, my routine, my memories. And now somehow he'd found my new address. Again. You ever feel hunted by someone who says they're the victim? I gave the pen to my lawyer the next morning. Teresa wasn't surprised. She just took photos, logged it, and said, "We're filing for a restraining order. Immediate." I nodded, but I didn't feel relief. I felt watched. Because someone had to deliver that pen. And I hadn't seen them. The confrontation didn't come when I expected it. Not in court. Not through a lawyer. Not even online. Came on a Tuesday. At work. I just finished my shift, 12 hours, 3 wound dressings, 1 seizure. And I was walking to my car when I noticed the same thing I noticed the first time he accused me in the parking lot. A car. Parked. Engine off. But someone inside. This time I didn't freeze. I didn't run. I pulled out my phone and hit record. And then I walked right up to the window. It rolled down. Zach. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. Almost broken. "I just want to talk." I laughed. Once. Sharp. "You're violating your bail terms just sitting here." He didn't flinch. I'm not here to hurt you, Katie. I lost everything. I waited. Silent. I know what I did was messed up, but I was drowning. You were the only thing that ever made sense. So you tried to ruin my life? I asked. He looked down, then said something I'll never forget. You left me with nothing. What did I have to lose? And that's when I realized the core of it. It wasn't love. It wasn't pain. It was entitlement. Zach didn't want me back. He wanted the version of himself that existed when I still looked at him like he mattered. And when that disappeared, he needed someone to blame. You ever realize the apology isn't really for you? It's just another manipulation? I stared at him. The same man who once cried when I brought him soup during the flu. The same man who broke my laptop and said, "It was an accident, don't make it a thing." The same man who forged documents, staged car damage, and rehearsed his lies in my vehicle. He opened his mouth to say something else, but I beat him to it. You missed something, Zach. What? This isn't about forgiveness. This is about closure. Mine, not yours. And then I did the thing I hadn't done in years. I turned and walked away. Without explaining. Without consoling. Without checking if he was okay. I didn't look back. Not once. Not even to see if he was watching. That was the moment I took myself back. Not with a scream. Not with a court order. But with silence. The next morning, Ellie sent me a link. A local news article. Man accused of fraud violates bail terms. Caught on surveillance outside ex-girlfriend's workplace. The hospital parking lot had cameras. They caught everything. Zach's lawyer tried to say it was a coincidence. The judge didn't buy it. Bail revoked. Held until trial. And just like that, he was gone again. This time legally. He said he missed me. I said nothing. I went home that night and did something weird. I lit a candle. The one I'd been saving. A $30 lavender soy blend I'd gotten as a gift 2 birthdays ago. Back then I told myself it was too nice to use. But that night I lit it. Sat on the floor. And breathed. The flame flickered. Soft. Ordinary. Alive. You ever forget how much space you take up when you stop shrinking? Would you let someone keep talking? Just so you don't feel guilty walking away? I don't think he'll ever understand. And that's not my problem anymore. The next morning my lawyer called. You're being subpoenaed. Not just as a witness. He's naming you in a countersuit. That's when I knew. He was still trying to rewrite the ending. You ever become the villain in someone else's story? Just because you finally said no? That's what it felt like after the countersuit. I remember staring at the subpoena like it was written in another language. Like the paper itself had a tone, smug, hollow, daring. Zach was suing me for emotional distress. For defamation, invasion of privacy, and malicious prosecution. His lawyer argued that my cooperation with the police was an act of personal vengeance. I laughed. A dry guttural sound I didn't recognize coming from my own mouth. You ever get punished for surviving someone? My lawyer, Teresa, was calm. This is a stunt. It won't hold. But it is real and we have to treat it like it matters. The trial was scheduled 2 months after his hearing for fraud. Which meant, until then, I'd have to keep showing up. Keep defending my name. Keep explaining again and again that I didn't make any of this up. The absurdity wasn't the worst part. The comments were. Because Zach's little jailhouse blog post had made rounds online. He was painted as the broken artist. The misunderstood underdog. A man destroyed by a bitter ex with a vendetta. And I the nurse. The one with a stable job, no criminal record, and receipts longer than CVS. I became the manipulator. There were Reddit threads. TikToks. Even a podcast episode titled, Guilty Until Proven Ma'am. A woman DM'd me on Instagram. You're what's wrong with feminism. You weaponize your feelings to ruin a man's life. I blocked her. Then 2 more. Then I made my account private. And at work? Even worse. Some colleagues supported me. Brought me coffee. Sat with me in silence. But others. They stopped meeting my eyes. Pulled back from casual conversation. One of the interns actually asked. So, did you ever love him? I almost walked out of the room. You ever want to scream, yes, I loved him. And that's why it hurt. But instead you just nod and say nothing? That was my new normal. My mom called me crying. Not because of Zach, but because of the neighbors. Apparently someone from her church group had shared the article and asked if it was about Katie Gray's daughter. And just like that, my private hell became a family stain. She didn't ask how I was. She just asked. Can you make it go away? I wanted to say, I tried. For 2 years. Instead, I just said. No, Mom. I can't. That night, I put a no visitors sign on my apartment door. Simple. Cheap. Laminated. But it felt like armor. Because I finally understood. I don't owe anyone access to my peace. They said I was cruel. But I was just the only one telling the truth. Ellie came over with takeout one night. We didn't talk about him. We watched reruns of Chopped and painted our nails a color called Gunmetal Freedom. But as she was leaving, she paused at the door and said, "You know you're not crazy for still being angry. You did things you'll never get apologies for." I nodded, then sat alone on my floor and whispered, "And still, I miss who I thought he was." Would you forgive someone just because the world wants you to? You probably think I should move on. But some echoes don't fade, they repeat. The night before the countersuit hearing, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside, a copy of our first photo together. Torn in half. With the words, "See you soon." That's when I stopped asking for peace. And started building a wall. You ever realize that closure doesn't arrive like a door swinging shut? It comes like dust, slowly settling after the collapse. That final hearing wasn't dramatic. No one screamed. There were no gasps or gavel slams or storming exits. Just me. Him. 2 lawyers. A judge with tired eyes. And a truth that had outlived every lie Zach ever told. He looked smaller. Paler. His once messy confidence now shrunk into stillness. He didn't speak when the judge read the verdict. Countersuit, dismissed. My cooperation with law enforcement, protected by statute. His bail violation, noted. The forged claim, entered into permanent record. The only sound I remember was the judge's closing line. This court finds no evidence that Ms. Gray acted with malicious intent. Rather, it finds she acted to protect herself from ongoing psychological harm. Psychological harm. Not trauma. Not abuse. But harm. Specific. Sharp. Legal. It felt like standing over a fire that had already burned out, and seeing finally the shape of what it destroyed. I left the courtroom and didn't look back. Not at him. Not at his lawyer. Not at the building. I walked 2 blocks in heels I could barely stand in. Then sat in my car, pulled off my shoes, and cried. Not because I was sad. But because I wasn't. That was new. And terrifying. When I got home, I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in months. Inside was a birthday card Zach had once given me. He'd written, "You're the best thing I'll never deserve." At the time, I thought it was romantic. Now I saw it for what it was. A confession. Dressed up as sentiment. I tore it into pieces. Flushed it. Not out of spite. Out of completion. A week later, the world didn't magically change. The news stopped reporting. The blogs moved on. People found other scandals to chew on. But the damage lingered like perfume that won't wash off. I still double-check my locks. Still keep folders of screenshots. Still hesitate when my phone rings from an unknown number. You ever survive someone and still feel like they're in the room when it's quiet? But I also did something else. I bought a new laptop. Not a refurbished one. Not one with Zach's fingerprints still buried in the keyboard. A brand new, unopened box. And I started writing. Not about him. About me. My story. The parts 1 buried under patience. The chapters 1 silenced with excuses. I used to think silence was strength. Now I know, silence only protects the wrong people. It's not a happy ending. But it's mine. No dramatic reunion. No redemption arc. No final apology that makes it all make sense. Just a woman in a quiet apartment, learning how to breathe again. Learning that not all noise is chaos. Some of it is just living. Last week, I saw a girl crying in the ER. Mid-20s. Puffy eyes. Busted lip. Said she fell. I sat with her during the intake. Didn't ask questions. Didn't push. But before she left, I slipped her a sticky note. It said, "You're not crazy. You're just early in the story." She smiled. And that was enough. You don't need fists to ruin someone, just patience. What if survival doesn't feel like victory, just freedom that's finally quiet? I used to believe justice would feel like peace. It still feels like loss. But it's mine. And they don't get access to the version of me I built from the ruins.